Good evening, guys. I hope you're all well. I'm currently recording this video late, so please don't be surprised if ever I'll make any errors in this question. Right. So, it's nice to have you back, guys. I hope you watched the previous videos. So here I'm working with financial maths. I'm solving previous questions from previous papers. It doesn't make sense, does it? Yeah, I'm solving questions from previous papers. Yes, for financial maths. Right. So now here I have a question that it's worth 10 marks. Right here. This is what I'll be doing for this video. And then let's get straight to it, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to the video. Don't forget to like and leave your comments in case you have any questions, or in case you want us to elaborate on some things, or you just want to throw a compliment or a complaint. It's fine, guys. So it says here, 7 years ago, Mrs. Gray decided to invest 18,000 in a bank account that paid simple interest of 4.5% per annum, right? And then the first question here it goes. So what happened is that I broke this question down into 3 parts because I didn't want to keep on going up to scroll to the previous questions. So I grouped these 2 questions together. Then I did question 3, then question 2. You'll see how I did it. So here is the first 2 questions. So it says 7 years ago. Let's get straight to it, guys. 7 years ago, what is that? That's n. 7 years ago, right? They gave us the period. Mrs. Gray decided to invest 18,000. Back then, she decided to invest 18,000. So which means the principal amount before it gained any interest, it was 18,000, right? In a bank account that paid simple interest. Listen to that, simple interest, which means we use the simple interest formula, right? And then they're saying the simple interest of 4.5% per annum. So now, which means our I, since the interest it's 4.5, the interest rate is 4.5% per annum, our interest is going to be a decimal of 0.045, right? So now we can go to answering the question 4.1.1. You see how I did it? I broke down the questions into some mathematical statements, and I'm going to use these mathematical details to solve my questions as they follow. So for 4.1.1 it says calculate how much interest Mrs. Gray has earned over the 7 years, right? So we want to know how much profit will she get on top of the 18,000 if she leaves it in a bank for 7 years, right? So remember, we use the simple interest formula this way, right? So the accumulated amount is how much? We don't know that yet, so we have to find that one out. The principal is how much? She deposited 18,000 for it to accumulate interest over 7 years. So how much is the I? 0.045 multiplied with the years, which is 7, right? So now the accumulated amount is how much? Let me quickly do this on my calculator. I have 1 plus 0.045 multiplied by 7 this way. So on my side, I hope I didn't make any errors. It says I have 23,670, right? So now with this money, it gained some interest from this initial investment, right? So I need to find out that interest, whether it's how much. So I take the accumulated amount, the 23,670. I subtract the money she put in, which is 18,000, right? So now, which means my interest, it's how much? Let me calculate it from my end. Get 5,670. So here, I'll just write 5,670 rands. So that's the interest she gained, right? Easy as that, guys. Now going to 4.1.2. It says Mrs. Gray wants to buy a television set that costs 27,660. Okay, so they give us an amount, 660 now currently, right? So 27,660, that's the price. Is this accumulated or principal? We don't know. Let's read further. If the average rate of inflation over the last 5 years, okay, we hear something that says last 5 years. Years, that's the period. Was 6.7% per annum. What is that? That is our I. Our I is equals to 0.067, right? Calculate the cost of the television 5 years ago. So which means the money that we have now, it has accumulated interest. So it's the accumulated amount. So we are looking for the principal amount from 5 years ago, right? Okay, but then wait. Which type of formula are we using? Simple interest or compound? They said average rate of inflation. Keyword inflation. Inflation means what? It means you use the compound interest formula, right? So now, what is the accumulated amount? We have 27,660. That is equals to P, because we don't know P. 1 plus our I, 0.067, raised to how much? To the 5 years they spoke about, right? So now, I want to make things easier for myself. You see the P here? I want to isolate everything from P. So I'll just use BODMAS here, which means I solve inside the brackets, right? 1 plus 0.07, can I add those? Of course. It gives me 1,067. That's a 6. It's not 0. 1,067, right? I raise that to 5. What I do on the right, I also do on the left. So I'll also divide with the same this side. So I'll just say here 1,067 raised to 5. Now this bracket below here, it's the same as the bracket above there, right? Which means now on this side I'll be left with P, and then I'll take this value as it looks. I punch this value on a calculator and see how much I get. So let me do it from my side. 27660 divided by 1,067, all that raised to 5. I get a value of 20,000, a clean 20,000, guys, without any. If I do it to 2 decimal places, I actually get no commas. I mean no decimals. Then a clean 20,000, easy as that, right? Okay, guys, let me rush you guys. Let's move on to the next question. I hope you're well. So here it says 4.1.3. At what rate of simple interest should Mrs. Gray have invested her money 7 years ago if she intends buying the television set now using only her original investment of 18,000 and the interest that earned over the last 7 years? Okay, so let's read the question now with analysis. Let me erase this. I think there's something here, of course. Yeah. Now, it says at what rate of simple interest, right? So we know that we have to use the simple interest formula somewhere, and they're saying at what rate, which means they want the R. But for us to find the R, we have to find the I. So it actually means that they're looking for I from the simple interest standpoint, right? Should Mrs. Gray have invested her money 7 years ago? So we have N being equals to 7 years, right? And then if she intends buying the television set now using only her original investment of 18,000. So we know that her original investment is 18,000. But then they're saying that now she buys the TV now. Then now, what does it have to do with the accumulated amount? Because they never gave us the accumulated amount here, right? They just told us that she intends on buying the TV now using her original investment, and we want to know how much interest is in that. So how much does the TV cost? How would I know that? I'll go back to the previous questions and see if is there any point where they speak about a TV. Let's see, the very previous question, 4.1.2, it says Mrs. Gray wants to buy a television. Aha, right there. That costs 27,660. That's the price of the television now, right? You see that? So that's the price right there. Accumulated amount is equals to 27,660. Do we have any decimal figures after that? Not really. Not really. Right? So I have everything I need. They just want the I in terms of simple interest. So I'm going to use the simple interest formula here. I have 1 plus I raised to n, right? My accumulated amount is how much? It's this one right here. So I have 27,660, that being equals to the principal, which is 18,000. And then I have 1 plus my I, it's how much? It's actually what I'm looking for. For which amount of years? For 7 years, right? And then now let me divide this. I think I'll need the other space. So now, to make things easier for myself, I'll just divide this whole bracket by 18,000, which means now I'll also have to divide this whole side by 18,000. See that? So now this 18,000 will cancel out that 18,000. I'll be left with 1 plus. Is there anything holding these brackets together now? No, because this 18,000, as it stayed outside the brackets, it had to be distributed to the whole bracket. So it was holding the brackets together. But now after removing this value outside the brackets, there is nothing now that forces me to keep the brackets, right? So now I multiplied by 7, how much is that? 7i. Wait, this thing looks like an exponent right there. 7i. And on this side, what do I have? I have this fraction there. I don't simplify this fraction. I want to avoid decimals so that I don't make any mistakes for that, right? So now, what will I have to do? I'll have to transpose the 1 to the other side without touching this fraction. All set? Let me do that now on the other side. I have 27,660 all over 18,000. I remove 1 from the other side. I'm left with 7i, right? And after that, I have to remove the 7 from the I. But remember that as I divide the side by 7, I'll also have to divide this whole side by 7. But I don't touch this part now. So I'll put it in brackets so I know that this whole part is divided by 7. So now, which means this cancels that. I'll be left with I being equivalent to 27,660 all over 18,000 minus 1, all that divided by 7, right? So I'll put this on my calculator. Let me do this on my end. So I have 27,660 all over 18,000. From there, I minus 1, close brackets, all that divided by 7. That gives me 0.07666666. But then, there must be a point where this thing ends. So let me put a 7 there, because it's 66666. When I round it off, it becomes a 7, right? For me to find the rate, I'll have to multiply this value by 100, and then to 2 decimal places, what I'm going to get is 7.67%. That's my rate, right? As easy as that, guys. The rate she needed using simple interest for her to buy the TV now with her initial investment of 18,000, it's 7.67% per annum, right? Now the last question, 4.2, it says on a certain day. Now this is a different question. I'm sure you can see that. On a certain day, the exchange rate between the US dollar and South African rand, it's $1 is 12 rands 91. At the same time, the exchange rate between the British pound and the South African rand is £1, because we're talking about British pound. Yeah, it's £1. It's equivalent to 16 rands and 52 cents. Yeah, that's a tongue twister. So it says calculate the exchange rate between the British pound and the US dollar on that day. That's a tricky one. Let's do it this way now. Let's say I have the rand. No. Let's put it this way. How am I even erasing? I have a whole eraser here. Come on, guys. What's wrong with me? So I have the US dollar compared to the rand, right? What else do I have? Let me divide this page. What else do I have? I have the British pound, the sterling, compared to the rand, right? So now they did say that one of those dollars, it's equivalent to 12.91 in terms of rand, right? And also they did say now that one of those pounds is equivalent to 16.52 of our rand, right? So now what I want to do now, I am supposed to compare the British pound with the dollar. Now, how would I do that? That's a tough one. But for 2 marks, it means they expect you to do it under 2 minutes. So I'll try to move this value from being 12 rands to be 1 rand. That's what I want. Same thing applies to this side. I'll try to have 1 rand on this side. Now, how do I make sure that on this right side I have 1 rand? I'll divide by 12.91. Same thing applies here. I'll divide by 12.91, right? So now, which means my 1 rand will be equal to how many dollars? Let's do that. Let me do it on my side, on my calculator. 12.91. That is 0.0774. It's a lot of digits, but let me do a handful. I have 0.077. Let's do to 4 decimal places. 5. See that? Now, after that, I come to the pound. I convert this to 1 rand. How would I do that? I divide this side by 16.52, and I do the same on the left side. What I do on the right, I do on the left, right? So now here I'll end up having 1 rand being equivalent to, I use my calculator there, 16.52. I get what is it, 0.0605. let me use 4 digits here also, 05, right? So now I have a rand and a rand equivalent, right? So which means if 1 rand is the same as 1 rand, and then I said now 1 rand in terms of the pound, it's equals to how much? 1 rand in terms of the pound, it's equals to this amount, 0.0605. And then I said 1 rand in terms of the dollar, how much is that? 1 rand in terms of the dollar, 0.0775, right? So when that's the case, now I'll divide with the smallest value. Here's the smallest value, this one here. I'll divide with 0.0605. What I do on the left, I'll also do it on the right. So I'll also divide by 0.0605, right? So which means now on this side, if all values cancel out, remember we are not left with 0, we are left with 1 right there. And then here, remember ratios should end up as whole numbers. So let me do it on my side, 0.0775 divided by 0.0605. How much do I get? I get 1.23. Oh no, sorry, 1.28. That's how the ratio goes. And then if I would have to do it in 1 decimal place, I'm not to 1 decimal. If I have to write my ratio to the nearest whole number, I'll just say now 1 is to, how would this convert the 1? When if I round off to the nearest 10, I get a 0. So here I have 1, right? So which means £1 will be almost equivalent to $1 in relation to how they were compared to the rand, right? So guys, I hope you're all set. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and please leave your comments in case you have something to say, whether good or bad or neutral. And I hope to see you in the next video.